Acest podcast este sponsorizat de Rebel Dot, compania de tehnologie care îți transformă ideea într-un produs digital inovator. On Campus.
Welcome, Dror Poleg, to our On Campus podcast. We are so happy to have you here. We dreamed of this moment ever since we started the Real Innovation Academy. And to be honest, I don't know how to introduce you. So I will just say that you are a creator and a thinker in the matters of future of work. You're an author of a very popular real estate and technology book, and I will let you say whatever you think is relevant from the many hats that I know that you are wearing.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure to be here with both of you, and it's so nice to be able to, learn together with people from all over the world. I see my daughter decided to come and say hello.
Hello. Of course, hello.
Anyway, in terms of introduction, I think you did a pretty good job. So I'm the author of Rethinking Real Estate, which is a book about the future of the built world. And I generally research the future of work, the future of cities, the future of the built world, and the intersection with the digital world, and what everyone should be aware of if they want to remain relevant over the next decade or two.
And to our listeners and viewers who want to know Dror better, we suggest you read his blog and all his works, because we hardly have time to cover everything, but I hope more and more of our listeners check out your work.
And also an interesting fact about you, Dror, that I found out from your blog post, you have some Romanian/Transylvanian roots, if I'm not
I do, yeah. My father was born in Sighet, and he grew up in Piatra Neamț.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I even visited it a couple of times, and, I've been to, drove around the whole country. So I'm a little Romanian too, somewhere.
Even more reason to listen to you and to have a very nice conversation, I'm sure. And the first subject that we want to touch with you today is, let's get physical, because connects to one of your blog posts that all of a sudden, in the context of Facebook and the metaverse, made sense again. And I know that you're a big supporter of the digital world, but all of a sudden you said that physical matters and we should not give up on it. So
please give us your red pill on this, because you said in your blog post that you're also struggling with this question. We're also struggling with, so.
Yeah. So, I grew up already on the internet. So when I was a teenager, I just started joining different online forums and building websites. And that was a long time ago already, maybe 25, 26 years ago. And I always saw most of my friends I met online. I met my wife online. Most of my work is online. And I've also lived all over the world. So I never felt very attached to any particular location. So that's my natural inclination. And then at the same time, I think it's very seductive to just run away to the online world and to think that, whatever we do there and whoever we meet there is enough, because we are physical beings at the end of the day, and we need to live somewhere that is safe and nice and pleasant and affordable. And we need to live in a society where other people have access to all of these things as well, because otherwise things are not going to be peaceful or pleasant for anyone else, and they very quickly become unsafe or difficult or politically kind of stressful. And these days we see the most talented people in the world working mostly on digital things and on, completely virtual worlds and solutions. And I wrote that blog post to remind people that, without a clean and safe and affordable physical environment, nothing else is possible. So it doesn't really matter what we build online, unless we solve all the challenges that we have in the offline world. It's not going to work. And most of these challenges come back to real estate. They come back to the built world. So how do we develop things that are pleasant for people, things that help them become productive, things that make it easier for them to live close to economic opportunity and close to other people that they love and connect with. And the impact that all of these things have on our environment. So both kind of long term in terms of climate change, but also in the immediate term in terms of how much pollution, what kind of air do we breathe, and how much noise there is around us. So it all comes back to the physical world, and there's a lot to do. And I think just from a business perspective, also, there's a lot of money to be made because there's big problems and there's a lot of money in real estate, and whoever can solve these problems or come up with new ideas is going to do very well for themselves.
Speaking about the economic opportunity and going digital, how do you see the big city life? Where do you see it going? I mean, if people move digital, what's going to happen to all the big city town centers that drawn people in the past because of the economic opportunity? I know you also wrote about that, but I think it's interesting to hear it from you.
Yeah, I think I'm generally optimistic about big cities. I think that, cities have something to offer to human beings that will always be attractive. But that something is not big office buildings that you go and spend 10 hours a day in. I think cities will win by doing the things that only big cities can do, which means to be very, very walkable, to have a lot of entertainment and good food and like diverse groups of people, to have really good shared infrastructure, so public transport and parks and other things that people can share together and that they cannot have on their own if they live somewhere in a private home. And I think maybe the difference I see in the future is that I think cities will have to choose a little more specifically what they focus on. So I see a world where both buildings and cities become more like consumer products. So they have to have a clear brand to decide who they're trying to target, what is their story basically, and what kind of people should come there and what should they expect to find. And so I think there's plenty of room for cities to be successful in the future, but they will have to move away from being places where people just have to be because they work to places that people want to be. So I also see cities becoming much more residential than office-based, at least in terms of their focus.
That will shift a bit the perspective, I'm sure. And I have read a lot of very far out ideas from you. And what I'm puzzled about is creatives have usually shaped the city. So we have whole neighborhoods that, because they were affordable, creatives moved in, like actors and artists, and they changed the face of the neighborhood. And then rich people moved in, and we have that gentrification, and creatives had to move in a new location. By doing that, shaping the environment around them. Now, creatives seems to want cleaner, more natural setups. Talented people are thinking, yeah, I can go to Bali and all I need is my laptop. How is still the city going to survive if the talent is no longer connected to one place? We need the physical world, we need the comfort, but it doesn't have to be New York. It could be our backyard, the village next to Cluj.
So I think, we will definitely see some people that choose that lifestyle of, let me go to Bali or to Chiang Mai or to, somewhere in Croatia or in Portugal, or at least people that do that for some weeks or some months every year. And that's okay. But I think most creatives will still be focused around big cities, but they will come there maybe for a different reason. So already here in New York, what we saw over the last 6 months is that the city is super busy, even with people doing business, but the offices are empty. So the restaurants are full, the nightclubs are full, the parks are full, people are doing meetups, they're meeting people, they're doing parties for crypto people and parties for prop tech people and parties for different things. So being together is still hugely valuable, but being together and coming to the city doesn't automatically mean that everyone is going back to the office. It means that they want to be together, but in a different setting. And interestingly, there's also a trend now of a lot of people moving from San Francisco or from Silicon Valley to New York, which is not like a cheaper place or lower taxes, but some of them spent some time in New York during COVID because they were allowed to work from home. And they fell in love with it because it's a real city. San Francisco and Silicon Valley, you have to drive everywhere and it's like mostly private houses. And they come to New York and they say, wow, this is amazing. You know, I can walk to one party, then I can walk to see my friend, then I can walk to a restaurant, then I can go home to rest a little and change. It's a completely different lifestyle that I think people that are actually very digital can appreciate urban life, because they like to get everything immediately. They like everything to be available to them, everything to be around the corner, everything to be, you know, delivered within an hour or, you know, 10 minutes away. And you can only achieve that in a very large city with good infrastructure. But as you said, you know, we have these processes of gentrification, and probably the main problem there is not that, you know, the city is becoming more attractive, because that's a good thing, but that the city can't keep up with demand. So the cities are so far, at least in the West, have not built enough housing. So it means that, yeah, if people move in, everything becomes extremely expensive for everyone. And they've not used their taxes very efficiently. So even though there was very high demand and a lot of successful people, the taxes that these people pay were not used effectively to build like amazing public transport, or to keep the city super clean, or to make it even easier for everyone, not just for the wealthy or creative people. But I think if existing residents would feel that these newcomers or these creatives are doing good for the city, they will be happy. You know, if they will say, hey, I can have an amazing train because these people are paying taxes, or I can have like, you know, beautiful schools because these people are paying taxes, they're going to appreciate it more. But what's happening now in a lot of large cities is that people that live in kind of middle to low income neighborhoods, they just see their housing costs go up and they don't see anything else getting better. So I think cities must become better at that. And I think they can, and some of them are.
I would like to ask you something about the future of work. But before, I would like to discuss with you guys a problem that I've heard from many CEOs lately, at least around here. And they said, listen, Vlad, we like this hybrid way of working, or even digital first, but we would like for them to come in the office from time to time, because we're feeling that we're losing any connection to them. I mean, we're feeling like they could work today for us, tomorrow for anyone else. And what would connect them to any company nowadays? And then I remember I also read one of your posts about the future being really different to how we see it now of work, like not necessarily working for a company, but being more project-based, or even I read something that blew my mind, like being rewarded based on our output. And so I see a lot of future questions and future of future questions here, and I would like to hear your perspective on them.
Yeah, so that's a very big topic, but I think in general, we're all very focused at the moment at, you know, whether people are at home or at the office, because this is like the big COVID question.
The duality.
Yeah, but I think the bigger change that we're seeing, and it's deeper and it's harder to actually see with your eyes, is that the structure of corporations themselves are changing. The way people are coming together to cooperate is changing. And we started to see that maybe 10 years ago with companies like Uber and others that started with like gig work. So basically, let's say lower income kind of jobs and more physical tasks, so, you know, drive someone or deliver something. But we gradually see the same logic or the same systems moving up in the value chain and starting to affect more and more other types of jobs that are more creative and more cognitive. So design and some types of programming. And a lot of these things are becoming fully outsourced, or just companies use them on demand, both on the low end. So, you know, people that are just doing simple tasks, but still with highly trained positions, so in programming, but also on the high end where you have people who are, you know, amazing experts in certain fields, and they're saying, hey, I don't want to work for a company anymore. I can just do my own thing. I can help a few different companies, and that's good enough for me. And I don't need to have a job, basically. So from both sides, we're saying that this kind of structure of a corporation, the idea that you kind of have all your resources under one roof and you own them and you manage them and you tell them what to do, is not working too well anymore. And because of this war for talent, I mean, to have your employees insist that they want to work remotely or flexibly is one step before your employees basically telling you, hey, you know, you don't need to worry even about where I am or when I work. Just tell me what to do, give me money if I solve your problem. And if I do something else, it's none of your business, you know, see you later. So we're starting to see that. And I think we're going to see more and more of it. And of course, this is not good or bad. It's just different. It means that people have more opportunity. It also means that people have less of a safety net. You don't just get paid to show up or come to the office and kind of just do okay. You have to prove your worth all the time. And both the employees and the companies are constantly looking for other alternatives and other opportunities. So it's a more dynamic world, but also a scarier world and more kind of anxious world.
Yes, you're no longer in competition with just the workforce in your city. All of a sudden, the world is your oyster. And that's a good thing, probably for the most talented. But that's also a bad thing because the local talent that could ask for better pay now is in competition with somebody from a village that will accept a lower pay just to do the same job.
Yeah, but I have to say, the kind of labor or cost arbitrage is definitely a part of it. But to me, the more interesting part is just the idea of specialization. So, I work mostly on my own, but I work with designers and programmers and people all over the world, even in Romania or, in Asia, in Japan, in Australia, in the US, in Israel. And actually, I see in my own work that I don't hire someone in Romania or in, Croatia because they're cheaper. I just go on the internet, and if I look for a designer, I look for the one that is exactly the style that I want. And, if they're in New York, then they're in New York. If they're in Romania, they're in Romania, or someone that has the specific experience with something that I'm trying to build. So for example, now for my crypto course, I want to create an NFT for my students to give it to them as a gift, like for graduation. And I want every NFT to look a little bit different. So it's like one character, but like every student will get something, different glasses, different hair. So I don't just need a designer that knows how to design some, cool character, but I need a designer that knows how to kind of program it a little bit. And so it's a very specific kind of skill. And if the designer is in, India, so that's fine with me. I don't care. But the amazing thing about the internet is that it allows us to find people that are extremely specialized at something very, very specific that we're looking for. And I think this is the real competition. Like, this is the hardest point for people to kind of grasp, that once you're competing in a huge market, the good news is that you can match with someone somewhere who wants you exactly, who loves your unique set of background and of skills and your style and whatever. But it also means that, that just being average is not enough anymore, that you have to both be good or to have a unique combination of things, but to make it clear what that combination is, like to bring it out, to have a voice, to make sure that the people who are looking for you will find you. And
so I guess we're still about to see all these changes that are going to happen. But I like how you said in one article that one of them is that luck will play a bigger and bigger role in this selection process because of the bigger pool.
Yeah, so it's like kind of a mathematical phenomenon that, when you have a big pool of candidates, almost by definition, if you try to pick the best one, luck will play a bigger role. So there's been a lot of experiments about it even before the internet in terms of companies hiring people. And, the common sense is that, if we talk to 10 people or we talk to 100 people, probably we should talk to 100 people because we have a higher chance of finding the best person. But actually, in many cases, if you hire from a smaller pool or you just hire through people you're much more likely to select the top candidate. If you hire suddenly from 1,000 or 1,000,000 people, the person you select might still be better than if you select from 10 people, but it will not be the best people out of those 1,000,000. It might be only the 1,000 best person. And to determine whether it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1,000 best, luck plays a huge role in this process. So it's just, that's just how it is. A bit like in the world of entertainment and movie stars and singers, the most popular singer in the world is not the person who sings the best. It's just a person who happened to be found by someone at a specific time and met another producer who had a really cool song that fit them really well. And they launched it on a week where there was nothing else going on in the radio. Like, there's a lot of things that happen. So same thing is starting to happen to other professions.
I would say that on the negative side, negative conclusion, there are no more certainties. Actually, there never were. But the safety blanket that we thought that we had, it's gone, or we should look at it as gone, and look at the future of work from all the perspectives to find our own edge. And that edge can be a very, very tiny niche in my country, but it can be huge in another country or in another geography. So not to be bounded by that, and also not to be bounded by the old type of contract between company and people, because that is going to change slowly, probably, and then suddenly.
Yeah, you know, so when our parents, I mean, I know in Romania it was a developing country, so it was maybe a different experience, but people in the West 40, 50 years ago, they lived in a world where, you know, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a reasonable job, and then you know that for 30 or 40 years, you're going to have a job probably, and then you're going to retire. And, you know, even if you're not wealthy, you're at least going to survive. You know, you're going to have a house, you're going to have some money to like buy groceries, and that's it. And maybe you save even a little more for your kids. Today, we live in a world that even if we wanted to have this kind of package, it just doesn't exist anymore. So, you know, the job that we have today, or the knowledge that we have today, we're guaranteed not to have in 40 years. And we're guaranteed that whatever we learned in college is not going to be relevant even in 5 years. Even saving money, you know, putting your money in the bank today in this environment basically means that you're losing money. That unless you're taking risks or trying to do something creative, you're basically putting your money in the bank, and you lose. Current inflation in the US is, I think, 5 or 6%. And that's the official number, which means if I put my money in the bank, I just lose 6% every year. So it means that everyone is pushed to take more risks. And again, that means that those risks might yield amazing results, but it also means that, you know, if they don't, then
you have to start all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so better get used to this volatile uncertainty and make risk our best friend. And instead of being afraid of taking risks, to just look at it as a next step for something else. You're exactly right. Our parents too were used to have the same job, even under a communist regime,
right,
or really after, for 10, 20, 30 years, or the same profession. You were a doctor, you would end up being a doctor, retire from that. But nowadays, a failed profession or a failed startup or a failed career can just be the stepping stone for something else.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to glorify it. It doesn't mean that everything is wonderful, you know.
Of course,
it's going to be
yes.
tough, and it's tough for a lot of people, and even for me, you know, I'm reasonably successful at what I do, but I always think, okay, I don't know what will happen in 6 months or in 12 months or in 24 months. I have to constantly kind of come up with new things and to kind of keep running. So that comfort that I think our parents have, we don't have, but we have the freedom to, you know, live lives that are kind of much more ours, you know, much more unique, not just to be those people that go and work in a factory or in an office and look the same and talk about the same things and then kind of give up a lot of other things.
Such a poetic conclusion to all the uncertainty. So the freedom to live our own lives. I love that. Thank you, Dror, for coming and allowing us to introduce you to the Romanian market. And I hope more and more of our listeners check out your work.
Sorry for the whole mix-up. Hopefully our viewers will not see the technical issues we had. And we are really looking forward to have you as a guest in Cluj next time you're in Romania.
Sounds good. Looking forward. And thank you so much. And yeah, it would be amazing to meet in person in our home country, original.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
On campus.